What's happening? Happy Friday. Made it through the week. The question is did you give back to the week? Did you do something of value or impactful this week? That's a good question to ask yourself. Do you ask yourself that at the end of your week? Yep, it was a busy one for me. A little bit less travel than I'm used to, so nice to be around home and here in Panama City. Really happy to share some of the things that I've been seeing and experiencing over the last couple decades. And sometimes when you want to get away from the house, when you live your life and work where you want, do as you please, sometimes you got to step out of the house and find somewhere to post up, get a little change of scenery, change of vibe, even if you are rolling solo. And right now, that would be moi. There's not a whole lot of outdoor spaces in Panama City that you can go and relax, have a nice lounge atmosphere, smoke a cigar if you like. Probably have a cigar a little bit later. Definitely brought one with me from Cuba. Man, it sucks for those people in Cuba right now. It's crazy what's going on in the world. I promise not to talk much about politics and shit. This is not one of those. I opened this invite up to a couple of different platforms, so we'll see if I have some questions to ask and answer. I know that a lot of this was provoked because I get asked all the time these random questions and the same question over and over. So I'm sure a lot of people are thinking the same stuff, looking for some sort of an answer or guidance. And, if I could provide some feedback and help some people out based on my experiences over the last 20 years, then why the hell? Why not? And, man, from Tucson, Arizona. Hey, what's up, Alexis? One of my Tucson friends. Growing up in the desert, it was always a dream to see something other than cactus and dirt. Love them sunsets, man. Ooh. But needed a change back then, and that kind of helped open my eyes up to, other places to explore in the States before I started going international. But the main reason I wanted to jump on right now was to talk about, international, the world outside of the U.S., being from the U.S. I grew up only thinking and knowing and talking about home. I didn't really ever have any thoughts beyond. I mean, even when we as a family would spend time off from school, going down to Rocky Point, I mean, yeah, we were crossing the border, but back then we didn't even need a passport. We would just go with a birth certificate, or I was young, and it just didn't have the same meaning as some of the international experiences that I've been having as I get older. So the international conversation for me has been life changing, and I like to provoke it in other people who are, either thinking about it or talking about it or following all the social media hype about it. Because it's not difficult. It just, it takes a little bit of knowledge and better said action. You gotta put the pedal to the metal and go for it. But, it all starts with like understanding the reason and your motives of why to do it. And, for me, when I go back to 2005, that's kind of where my international story begins. Actually, it was before that. It was around 2003. I had just moved to San Diego. I was like, man, Arizona boy, California finally made it. I lived in South San Diego, and I just really, really loved the San Diego vibe. The California dream, baby. It was incredible that I got there, and it was very, very difficult. The cost increase was very tough, and I figured out how to kind of skate by. But as I started to pursue the business that I was in at that time, across the border into Tijuana, into Mexicali, into Baja California. I guess that was my first taste of actually um, traveling international, not for a vacation, but traveling international with an intent, with a purpose. And that was a different mindset. I think that really tipped me from just being a traveler to being more of an explorer. I was purpose driven at that point, and it really made a lot of things possible for me. Um, if I wouldn't have had a business that was scalable to go international, I mean, we were selling dial-up internet, and because it was the internet revolution back then, right after the 2000 burst, I probably wouldn't have had an excuse to go international. I was in like food and beverage, I was making money, entrepreneurship, trying to figure out life and business. And because of the dial-up internet era, I was able to pursue something outside of my home country. And I didn't know back then that I was going to end up, living abroad and having a whole lifestyle outside of my own country. But I certainly started with an open mind, and I knew that I would follow the opportunity wherever it led me. It could have been anywhere, really. My path ended up in a really good spot. I chose wisely, I'd like to think, but more importantly, the right steps were presented to me and laid out in front of me. And if it wouldn't have been for that, I could have ended up anywhere and had a horrible experience and been right back home, thinking, what did I do? And why did I waste my time? But that certainly was not my case and not my story whatsoever. I know a lot of people that have bad experiences trying things, and it doesn't mean that you shouldn't give it a shot. It just, they might have approached it wrong. They might not have sought the proper counsel, and they might have just been an idiot approaching whatever they were trying to do. So I certainly see a lot of people do that, and then, they're the ones that like to go and say negative things, but my experience has been really, really enjoyable. Not easy, full of all kinds of weird things that I'll share a little bit with right now. I don't plan to be on here too long, but I do want to just share some of my stories while I answer some of the questions. A few people wrote me. Thank you for your questions, and thank you for letting me know you couldn't jump on at this time. It's not really about live for me. It's about giving you guys some information, because I don't really pay much attention to what's going on over there, but I hear from you all what's happening once in a while. And every time I hear it, I can't believe it. I can't believe things have changed so much since I left. And, being in and out of the country for my first few years, I jumped back and forth. Uh, the business turned in many ways, changing industry, but my resources kept me hooked, kept me tied into this international world that I had, never really been taught or exposed to. So I couldn't just let all that, go sideways. And so the business had changed from internet service into, completely different angle, which ironically was, something, in the form of an opportunity for, some precious metals. And, I didn't know anything about that stuff, when I was first getting introduced to Central America and the riches that these volcanic countries have. I mean, I had no idea the natural resources available. And I had opportunities to get involved and become a small investor and learn new things that I never ever thought would be possible. So that initial interest and motivation for me to continue to explore that was my driver. If I wouldn't have had that driver, it would have just been an extended vacation. I would have come and gone on trips, and I would have enjoyed traveling. But to actually be someone who's left the U.S., lived in other countries, obtained residency in other countries, it's a very different story. And I think it really starts for everybody with that main reason. I mean, why would you? Why would you leave where you're comfortable, where you grew up, where you have all your friends and family? I mean, some people just hate the schooling. Like, it's weird. I hear about all these things, and I mean, they're talking about how the restrooms are being reconfigured. I mean, that's a school conversation all of a sudden. I don't know where that came from. I don't really follow everything, but I know that it's different, and it's not the traditional curriculum that maybe, I had or you had. And so those kinds of changes might be the reason why like young parents are trying to figure out a better alternative on how to get your kids the right info, how to get them properly educated. And certainly when you get into other countries, the possibility for private education is extremely accessible. So having your kids grow up in a multinational school with multinational peers, that's so valuable. They learn multiple languages, they learn culture, and I don't see that happening, or I don't hear people talking about that, in the U.S. So maybe that's one of the reasons that would motivate you and would push you to want to pursue something. Maybe it's like the political scene. I mean, who likes it? I don't know a single person that's happy. Everyone's pissed off about something, and it doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on. It's just there's a lot to not be happy about. So that might be the reason why you need to consider, somewhere to go, an alternative, at least to explore and have a possibility. So dig deep, if it's ever something you've considered and you're like, Chris, but how do you do it? Where do you start? You start with knowing why. Like you have to have that push. Um, so many challenges that occurred, over the years. If I wouldn't have had a very clear purpose behind a business, I would have, stopped. I would have quit. I would have gone home. So, there's lots of things. I could be on here forever talking about all the issues. I heard from a friend in California that he's paying $7 a gallon for gas. I I mean, I had a moment just processing that because, first of all, I hardly ever drive anymore. One of my biggest lifestyle perks since I left the States is that I have people drive me around now. And whether it's an Uber or a private driver, um, I just don't deal with a lot of the day-to-day hassle of driving. So, I'm not looking at the pump. I'm not paying attention to those numbers. And the gas prices here have risen as well. I did a little bit of, checking on that. But, it's not something I'm stressing out about, nor is it something I'm even thinking about. And when I do drive, I mean, the prices are in per liter, which growing up in the States, we go by the gallon, and I know it's 4 to 1. It's an easy thing to calculate, but, I don't even pay attention to the sign. Um, so, the mindset and starts to change and shift once you, drop your comfort and you leave into new places. But, I think the first step for people is just really having an understanding why. I had someone, ask why I would give up my citizenship in the United States. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? I mean, I'm still a U.S. citizen. I mean, I file my taxes in the States. I didn't Jason Bourne it and go, MIA and I'm off the grid and off the map. I mean, I just chose to live in another country and become a resident of another country. And I mean, if I really wanted to pursue nationality in another country, you can do that. And you don't always have to give up your domestic nationality or citizenship. I mean, I wouldn't want to do that. The U.S. has got a lot of great things going for it, despite all the issues happening, and you know. But I don't want to make this a downer. So if you're more clear on why you would do it, like maybe you're an investor and you're just concerned about the market and where to put your money because things go up and down. And I know a lot of people that lost their ass on crypto. Now, are they out? No, they're counting on a big rebound, so they're going to be just fine. But did it throw them off? Did it change their plans? Did they have to pivot? Some of them, some of them were sitting in a good place where that extra in their portfolio, it's volatile while it may be, but they're going to sit it out through the long haul. But maybe you're considering other countries where your money will go farther. Maybe you're a landowner. You want land. You recognize that there's some weird shit going on with our land and what we can do with our land and the resources our land has. And to get yourself a piece of it, is a smart thing to do. You can do it where you live, but it might cost you a lot. You might have to go in undesired areas. And so, you can look at other nations, other countries, and find ideal places to own land and do it fairly easy with legal help and clear, clean processes. And I mean, it's pretty remarkable what you can buy in the terms of land outside of the United States around the world. So if you have a lot of money and you want to land bank and, buy land and just let it sit there, there's a lot worse things you could be doing with your money. It's actually a smart investment. I know a lot of people that do that. We started doing that when we first got into the business. We wanted to get some lots locked up for the future. And, I think this is a common thing that people go through. So yeah, if you're into real estate or if you're just, someone that's woke up and realized, man, there's a lot of people making money on the short-term rentals. Those platforms make it real easy to manage, and maybe I should give it a shot. Maybe I give it a try. Buy a condo somewhere and flip it into a rental. There's so many people that have successful rentals, even though the market is changing. You know, people, and if you have a big network, a lot of people would love to stay at your place, and all you got to do is have a place and offer it to them, and you'd be surprised how many people would be willing to support you in that and stay with you and um, you know put extra money in your pocket. So a lot of people are taking that path. They can find a lot of great deals and get into a turnkey short-term rental scenario that doesn't cost them a lot of money. The problem is a lot of people think that they can just put very little money down and have the whole thing work and support itself, and it's usually not the case. You got to have a little bit more money to either inject into a down payment or into marketing this new property, because if you just rely on the platforms to bring you the business, it can be something that doesn't pan out the way people hope it to. And most of the time, people get impatient. They want everything really fast, and you have to recognize that the U.S. moves really fast. Canada moves really fast. Some of these other countries culturally move really slow in comparison. So, extending your patience into all things considered, man, that's a key ingredient to not getting frustrated with all the encounters and oddities and things you're going to run into when you're abroad. Um, I'm going to see here. Why don't you want to live here? The U.S. is the best country to live in. Yes, yes. I mean, I know it's the best country, or I've said that for many, many years. So I'm not here to bag on it. I mean, I just know that there's a lot of junk going on, and I learned 20 years ago to just find my happy place, find me, be me. And I lost my suit and tie. I lost the corporate formality. I just started to be more real with me and find my peace. And so once I started to find that, I compared it to what I thought was my peace in the U.S., and that was the mind fuck for me, because I really thought that I had gotten to a point of peace and happiness in California. And I was living at the beach in Newport Beach, and I'm like, what more could I want? This is like a dream come true for me, especially, Alexis, from Tucson, Arizona. It's like getting to the coast is just awesome. But I was so much more happy in another place, and it was weird. It really took a toll on me. But I followed that happiness and I followed a business. So those two things, I had like a double motive that helped me see my plan through and stick with it. So people who maybe just are curious, or they go on a vacation and they kind of wander around and daydream. Maybe I could see myself living here in Cabo, and the maybe never goes anywhere. The maybe just stays a dream. So that's what I'll advise not to do. And yeah, I know a lot of people ask these questions, like uh things change. I had a friend that used to always say everything has an expiration date, and I agree to that. Things expire, things change, good things get bad things become good again. I don't tend to know all the answers, but I do know, I do know what it means to feel happy and to wake up without a weight, and just to jump out of bed because you love your shit, you love your life, you're fucking happy. I mean, there's no substitute for that. Um, so, once you've kind of gotten to that point of knowing, what the reason is behind doing this international thing, whether it's an investment or a journey or, maybe it's just vacations with a new open eye, right? You're now getting curious and you're asking, what's the condo sell for here? It's so easy to get condos in hotels where they manage everything for you. So, I mean, if you're just scared and you want to baby step your way into it, you could just buy one of those and let the whole hotel group manage your thing, make you some money, own the asset, and start to claim, you got international in your portfolio. That's not that far of a stretch for a lot of people. But, I get building your dream home on your dream land. You got to find it. You got to dream it. You got to build it. You got to see it all through. That's a process a lot of people dream about. And then when they start to get serious with it and look at it, they realize, man, there's a lot more to it or a lot harder, or they make mistakes along the way that deter them and they say, you know what, I'm out. It's just easier to go, find my kind of fake happiness or my temporary happiness, my waves of happiness up and down in the States. So, I'll just settle for that. And I just simply didn't want to settle in my case. I really wanted to pursue the happiness and the vibrational energy that I felt when I was outside of the US. It was unexplainable in my early days, and there was no way I could ever break it down in words for people who would ask me. Um, some people might be interested in doing this because, they just want to downsize. They want to get out of a big house. And tiny home communities are popping up all over the place. They're super rich with amenities. And when you have an amenity rich lifestyle and you have a small home, you get out more and you get into the community, you build relationships with people. And I remember growing up, it's like I knew my neighbors, but, we didn't really do a lot of things together. But when you start making friends in other countries and you're the immigrant, you're the one that is now an immigrant in another country, you're forced to make new relationships. And these can flourish because there's a lot of people in the same boat and they've made the move, but, now they're trying to figure out social. They're trying to figure out how to socially connect with people and, find common interests. And the internet's making it so easy. So, lots of tiny home projects that catch a lot of people by surprise because they can approach home ownership in small home communities. That's a fraction of what it would cost them to do in their backyard. All right, so my motives were business and happiness, and that took me into a country, and I wasn't really looking to retire. I wasn't, like I didn't even identify as an expat. I hear that with expat, and I didn't know what the fucking expat was. I certainly didn't even call myself one until I got to Panama, like at least 10 years later. I don't know what I called myself. I would tell people I was just lost and confused, trying to find my way. Um, but now, it's a funny debate because now I see myself as an immigrant. We'll call it what it is. So I hear about immigrants making their way up north to the United States, and I was very happy to be an immigrant who pursued a life to the south. And I didn't just immigrate into one country, like I did a multi-country immigration. So people that are curious, like how to go about it, I mean, I definitely have learned a couple of things with multiple countries. And so I can share, some great pieces of my journey so that you don't screw it all up and waste time. If you're really beyond the point of knowing why, like maybe the list is really long and like shut up, and like, I already get why, but what's my plan of action? How do I actually execute, this crazy dream of mine? Because most of your friends and family are going to think you're fucking nuts. They're not gonna support your initial idea. It just seems too weird. And who talks about stuff like this? You're probably one of the only people in your world that's talking like this, because everyone else is thinking the U.S. is the best place in the world. They're stuck on the track that keeps repeating itself. And, I think that's where I had to get away from that, because I didn't want to repeat the same track anymore. I wanted to listen to a new track, a new sound, a new song. Um, so I think it comes down to writing out a list, because there's so many awesome countries that you can go to. Someone asked me, like, why did I end up in this country? Like, why Nicaragua? People would say, why that country? Why Panama? Why now am I talking about Belize so much? So there's a lot of advantageous reasons for every single one. But, you have to write a list of them so you can start to examine, like, do they match with what it is that you're motivated for? Because fuck what everyone says, and, all the videos and social media and publications, like, you have to think about how it applies to you. So who cares what other people think? Mom, I saw you for joining. Thank you. And my mom just came to Panama, and she was talking about, you know, the place that she would live for the rest of her life. And she couldn't see it. She couldn't see the place for the rest of her life. And I just, one morning I'm having breakfast and I thought, for the rest of your life, wow, I've never thought of it that way. I've never used those words, rest of my life. I've always thought of it more as, I want the best life right now possible. And, it was something that we got in a nice talk about, and we were able to actually kind of learn from each other a little bit on how you look at things will determine, your path. And once we got into the conversation, I saw my mom change her comments and her words into searching not for the place for the rest of her life, but a happy place. Simply a happy place. And it changed the perspective and opened it up to so many more possibilities, so many more options. And, that's something that a lot of people don't get to experience, because, they have a very focused way of thinking, because they've always been that way. And to crack it open, in a world that you're not familiar with, it's just not something you would really do on your own. You need to be hoaxed into it or pushed into it, or God forbid something bad happens and now it's an emergency, and you got to really just do it because you have no other choice. I mean, you don't have to wait. You don't have to wait that long, and you don't have to pack up and move. You don't have to put all your stuff into a container and ship it across the world. Leave your problems where they are. Dump your problems in the dumpster and start over fresh with a new fresh light soul and way of looking at things when you go to a new place. That's just my recommendation. So make a list of the countries. You got so many places, Portugal and Italy. People are talking about how cheap the real estate is over there. Would I recommend it high on a list of places to go? I don't know. It depends on who you are and what you're into. I'm a fan of the Caribbean and Latin America. I like the warm weather. So I know this region really, really well. So people that are interested in South America, Central America, Mexico, Caribbean islands, boats. I mean, I know this area extremely well, 20 years well. And my network has gotten really, really large around the globe. So, I'm very resourceful and helpful with people who want to come out here and figure things out. They don't have to do it on their own. Make your list and make it detailed on, like, the countries that catch your attention. Belize has got really cool beaches, really, really laid back lifestyle. Panama's the winner for so many people because it's just the mix. It's the hub. It's on fire right now. It is growing way faster than a lot of the neighboring countries, and it's got a good, PR and track record, and we got little hiccups and little issues here, just like anywhere, but certainly it's doing very well. And I think once you start to really nail down all the different countries, you can eliminate half of them just by matching up the destinations you're coming up with your motives for doing this. And a lot of the countries don't really give you that. Maybe you're a yoga teacher or something, and your dream is to lead yoga retreats. Certain countries might provide a better destination for that type of an experience that you want to move into in the next phase of your life. So have a list of focus, and then if you don't have to do it on your own, you can just hire someone to do it for you, and they'll line it all up, lay it all out for you. It's kind of like my line of work is I help people who don't want to deal with all that reconnaissance work. They don't want to have to go figure it out on their own or do it first and mess it up and then try again. They want to pay for advice. And so, we've been able to really serve a lot of people with advice, firsthand advice. So that's a huge suggestion, whether it's with us or someone else. It's just, why not seek advice from someone who's already been down the road? So, then you got all your, lists dwindling down to the destinations that are probably going to be best for you. And when you get down to that, you're going to need to reach out. You got to initiate contact with someone, right? Otherwise, all you're doing is window shopping. And you can either contact a professional so that they can, step in and give you that advice, point you in the right direction, maybe bundle up some services so you can just pay one person you trust and let them help you with the process, or you contact different listings, and oh my god, I can't imagine people who do that shit. What a nightmare that must be. But I know a lot of people do it. I know a lot of people go on Facebook and then all these real estate sites, and they're trying to find like the listings wherever they can, and they're calling international numbers, and I just see that as a lot of wasted time, because if you're not in a position to execute and move, and you're not even in the country, and you don't have boots on the ground, and all you're doing is fact finding, that's very time consuming and expensive to do internationally, unless you have nothing to do, and then knock yourself out. But if you want to speed it up, save some time, give professional advice, like, it's worth having someone put a lot of this stuff on a pedestal for you. So then you start, really contacting and connecting with, whoever's selling, whether you want a business, or maybe you want to rent something, or, maybe you don't want anything. You want to come a portion of the year to study and, have a certain class, or a lot of people come like to places like Panama for medical checkups, stem cells. People are, I just had a conversation with a buddy the other day about going down to Colombia, and how Colombia has these package deals for full medical labs, $800, full package, pick you up at the airport, check you out, do all your labs, stay overnight, head home with all your results. I mean, it's pretty amazing, to get that kind of expedited service. In other places, it's very expensive, or it's just not possible. So, these are other reasons why, people might want to jump into certain countries. But again, it's all based on that why, that motive of why you're doing this shit to begin with. Once you start, contacting people, whether it's, the end sellers that are selling stuff. I mean, if you're looking for like a business to buy and you're trying to sort through the waters and find the people selling businesses, I mean, that's a tough path. You might as well work for somebody, that knows the businesses for sale. If you're looking for hotels, or you want to open up like a spa or an Airbnb, or, bed and breakfast boutique hotel, then, you're going to have to reach out to somebody, at least to get information. And then if you get serious about it, you're going to need to be able to really engage in a negotiation with someone that you feel you trust, that you can see through till the end. And again, when you have help to contact all the local resources that you need to accomplish your goal. I mean, I'm dealing with a scenario where people need permitting, local permitting. Most people have no idea where to start. You got to deal with governments, and sometimes you got to deal with politics and delays, governmental holidays, festivals, shutdowns. I mean, there's just a world of red tape that if you don't know how to deal with that, it can be very, very demotivating. So, you want to leave these tasks to the experts so that you can just, focus on your reason for it, your list of places, you narrow it down, you make contact with a couple of offers so you get to know, what the scenarios are. You make sure in that contact phase, like you're you're contacting people that have experience firsthand, so you can bounce your questions and ideas off of them. That's why I throw myself out there. Like, uh, if anyone ever wanted to talk travel or like life or investments international, I would always be open to that conversation because it's just been part of my life for so long. It's not work. It's not even advice. It's just storytelling, sharing experiences. Um, so, you make your outreach, and then, you get into the presentation mode where, like you have to present yourself and your case, what you're trying to do. Like a lot of people say, I want to move, and like, okay, you want to move, but like when you get there, what do you want to do? Like, do you have a plan once you get there to just sit around and watch TV? Obviously not. Are you trying to start a book club, or, do you want to just be retired and golf every day? Do you want to make new friends and be a busy bee? Do you want to keep working like a remote job? Are you wanting to be like, in the schooling arena and provide value and give back to the community and teach? There's always needs for that. And so maybe those are the things that call your attention. But you're going to need to present your case so that whoever's helping you knows where to drive you and steer you, point you in the right direction. And also, you need to be ready to be presented to. Like, you got to understand that people are going to pitch you shit. They're going to try and sell you where to rent, where to stay, where to vacation, where to eat. And it's not that they're like trying to be salesy in your face. It's that, they're excited about this and they want to show you the path and they want you to end up in like quality experiences, not horrible places that make you go and run your mouth and talk shit. So, you take the suggestions for what they're worth. Don't see them as like, overly salesy pitches. So, this is certainly not designed to be pitchy. It's just a chance to show and tell and share. Cheers. Um, Someone wrote me and said, you know, why is Panama not getting into crypto? And, I thought about it for a minute and then I realized, wait a minute. I just was at a meeting 2 days ago with the branch manager of Caja de Oro. She deals with the construction loans, and this is a local bank here in Panama. And I asked her this question about crypto, and she was very excited to share that this bank is going very forward with the ability to have crypto accounts receiving and payment. So, there might be some pending details or something like that, but the fact that people don't know these things, don't let that be the reason to hold you back, because most of the things that you're thinking don't exist. They probably do exist. You just don't hear about them. And even people here like me that live locally, like we don't find out about them unless someone asks us, and now we got something new to go find out and look for. So I appreciate your questions because it pushes me into new places. And if you got a question that I don't have the answer to, I'll reach out to my whole network to figure it out. And then, we just become more valuable for the next person that has a similar question. Once you start to get, pitched a few times, or you start to see different offers, or, you start to see different countries, and you start to, see different schools or evaluate, different places that might be the one, the spot, you're very quickly going to have to close the loop. You've got to close the cycle. Like, you either close it because this is nowhere near good for you, like the scenario, the concept, the whole idea of living abroad is just not for you. So you close that. And at least you're being real with yourself. You're being real with the people that maybe extended their hand to help you. Like, not interested, not for me is a very good way to close the cycle. And then you're not in the, back and forth, because I didn't close the loop. I didn't close the cycle. I let it linger open for so many years. And in my case, it was a blessing because I had many opportunities, many pivots along the way that could have easily been the end. It could have easily been the close and said, let me go back to do something else. But, the close didn't come. I left it wide open. And so I looped back into okay, what's the reason I'm doing this again? And what am I approaching? What's my focus list? What am I really trying to do out here? And who am I contacting to make that happen? And how am I presenting myself to be able to accomplish that? And who am I getting in front of that's presenting to me how to make that happen? So it all started to become a very circular cycle. And now I feel like if I was to have a conversation with someone who's curious or has a question, I'll know exactly where they're at in that cycle based on my own experiences. So someone else had asked me about, opening bank accounts, opening companies. This is something that, is very, very popular. And we have some friends that just recently established a new company here in Panama. They are in the process of opening up the bank. And to their surprise, it flows fairly quickly. We have great relationships. So when was the last time you sat down with the branch manager of your bank? Not to complain. I mean, I know you can get their attention, especially if you're pissed. But when was the last time you sat down with them because they wanted to help you? And there might be a lot of cases of this. I know years ago it was very common, but the last time I was in Bank of America in the U.S., it was not a pleasant experience. Nothing compared to me being able to walk into a branch out here in Latin America and get the attention of all the people I need, spend very minimal time in the branch and get the job done. I opened my first bank account for $50 in Panama, and I was in and out in 30 minutes or less. Now, I didn't just walk in random. I leaned on relationships. I had someone assist me in that process, and it was a lawyer who wrote me the letter and sent me to her very trusted alliance that she worked with for many years. And that process was so easy. Why would you even think of doing it any other way? So you gotta be honest with yourself. You gotta close the cycle when you come. You gotta close on, if your intention is to have a bank account outside of the U.S. and that's your only intention, okay, get to that point and close it. I didn't have a company established when I opened my first personal bank account. I did it. I was only in the country a short period of time. Now I had a couple of prerequisites that made it possible. Don't get me wrong, but the process itself was fast. I just did it. So I closed that. I closed that cycle of establishing banking so that I could actually live and operate in Panama. And that made it more easy for all things considered. The company, setting up a company in another country isn't always easy, but in countries like Panama, where the legal system, is very similar to the U.S., um, you can fly right through it if you have a good team behind you and people showing you the steps to take. So you might not need a company. You might say, yeah, it doesn't apply to me. But if you're a homeowner, how do you own your home? Is your home owned in your name, or is your home owned in a company? Is your home in a vulnerable situation where something happens and you could lose it, or someone can take it from you? Or when you sell it, you have to pay a lot of taxes on it, because there's ways to own your property with a company, and sometimes an offshore holding company can provide a great safety net tax structure. So we have a lot of questions from people who want to become more educated on how to manage what they own, what's in their portfolio, and use it in a smarter way. Be more intelligent about what they have. We don't all go through financial education. We don't all grow up from the top universities or families that show us how to manage money or how to protect what we've worked hard for. I mean, what you've worked for your whole life, building up and building up. How safe is it? How secure is it? How protected is it? And in times of vulnerability, you look to other places that might be a little bit more safe and secure. And so a lot of people that are in the financial world, they've recognized that there is a lot of strength and financial movement in Central America, and Panama happens to be a big hub for that. And I've been here for 8 years witnessing the amount of banks and the amount of um, growth and economy movement and GDP comparisons from previous years to these years. And it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. So, you want to be honest with yourself and close those cycles. Maybe you're just closing on like a rental. I had a friend who was just down here, and she's a single mom. She's looking for a place to basically check out. She's done well for herself, but she's sick of the things around her in the U.S. I won't even comment on any of it, but she's sick of it. And she is now fully ready to find a place here in Panama. So she came down, she looked at a couple of properties, and everything she thought she wanted, she started to reconsider and change and open up her eyes and see things from a different perspective. And this is what you need to do. You got to close that cycle. Maybe the closing of the cycle is just like getting on a plane, going to the places on your list, taking a trip there, and closing that portion of it. So you can say, I'm feeling this or I'm not feeling this. You got to close that thought. Maybe you're closing on a deal because you went on a trip and then you're pleasantly surprised. You saw that there's this awesome condo available inside of a hotel brand that you're a fan of, and it can be yours. You don't have to share it as a timeshare. You don't have to give it to other people or check people in or deal with the maid to clean the sheets. The hotel will deal with all of that, and they'll take all of that off your hand. They'll even pay you. There's some places you can pool into a rental pool where it doesn't matter if your place is rented or the neighbor's place is rented. You're all making money together as almost business partners in a venture that you don't have to worry about. So, buying small, inexpensive condos internationally becomes an international investment that can pay you out monthly. It's really incredible. So why would you not consider? The only reason you wouldn't consider is because you don't know why. And, I respect that, and you shouldn't. You shouldn't be thinking crazy if you don't know why. But if you're crazy like me and some of the other people that have already made the journey, then, you might just want some coaching and guiding along the way. So that's what we're here for. And so happy to be here with one or two of you, a couple of friends, a couple of family members. And, I'll be sure to share some of these answers, because I know many of you might just, not be into the lies and, you're busy. I get it. You got kids, and that's probably the reason a lot of people don't do this is they have attachments. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to do it. Well, you can do it in small doses. You can go stay somewhere abroad for a couple weeks, couple months, but do it not to do all the tours and activities. I mean, actually go back to a place. I hear a lot of travelers say, I'll never travel to the same place twice. Well, I mean, if you only want to travel, that's not a bad philosophy, but if you love a place and you connect it and you have a reason of why you might want to go back, you should pursue that. You should go back. And when you go back, you don't have to see the sights like you did the first time. You can actually see new things, pursue other interests that you might not have had before. And all that will help this process become really smooth and really fun and enjoyable. So hopefully some of you who get this, whether it's after the fact or those of you that were here for my little spiel over my cigar and drink at the lounge here in Panama City. Hope you have a great weekend. Stay safe out there. Don't let all this stuff get you down. It's too easy. We gotta fight through it and, find your happy place. Be happy when you get there, but not only when you get there, you have to be happy en route. And you will be more happy en route, whatever you do, if you ask people for help along the way. Definitely learned that. I think I tried many times to do things without asking for help, and now that I've learned how to drop the ego, ask for some freaking help, ask for some guidance, be a little vulnerable, expose your scenario, expose your issues to someone who gives a shit, and actually watch how things can change. So, it's in your hands, it's in your control, and be happy in life. Thanks everybody, and life's short, travel more, as we say. my Tucson peeps. So happy that you guys were here. And good old Mike. What's up, brother? Right when I'm about to jump off. Anyways, love y'all. We got more things coming this year. So if you're in California, Florida, New Jersey, Texas, Illinois, Ohio, Canada, Alberta, international, Dominican, Central America, we have multiple ways to learn more about what opportunities are outside of your backyard. So make sure to keep in touch and ask for more info, and we'll do what we can to steer you in the right direction. So thanks again. See y'all soon.